Addy soldiers. Say it with me, folks. Iced coffee is for pleasure, hot coffee is for business. Oh no. Oh, mint lip gloss and coffee is not that's not a good combo. It's about 4,000 degrees inside my apartment right now, so please just take a look at this right now, because I can guarantee you by the end of the video I'm going to look like I crawled out of a swamp, because that's basically the environment that I'm living in. I have said that my final form is Swamp Witch, but if I have to work in these conditions, I may have to reconsider. Alright, book people, listen up. If you're a reader, if you're a reviewer, if you're a writer, we all need to get our collective shit together. Book people have a real entitlement problem. It's not a cute look. I can't have a brat summer if all of you are gonna be this obnoxious on the internet. And really, this is nothing new. The book community runs on like a 3-month cycle that every couple months there's some kind of new shenaniganery scandal of like some author said something mean or some reader is being dogpiled by a fandom or whatever. And I don't usually get involved in the drama of it all, but there have been a couple of instances lately that have gotten me very frustrated, along with I've been seeing so much discourse online about what readers and authors owe one another in the bookish space. So please consider this my metaphorical hat toss into the ring of discourse. And I know the internet is where nuance goes to die, but not today. Today we are resurrecting nuance. We are grave robbing the cemetery of nuance, okay? Grab a shovel and get in the minivan. And while I probably named this video something like authors are too entitled these days, or readers have too much entitlement, surprise bitch, I'm actually talking about both. Oh, I've lulled you into a false sense of security thinking I was gonna talk about one or the other, but it's both. Oh wow, this has been clickbait all the time, how the turns have tabled. And if that sounds like something that you'd like to listen to on this late night recording, without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in for this semi-decent video essay on entitlement, expectation, and respectfulness within the bookish community. First up, we're gonna be talking about author entitlement, because some of you are living in a full other reality than our current one. One of the latest scandals that's happening on Threads and Twitter is that a bunch of someone told me that Twitter is the only thing that you can acceptably dead name, and I would agree with that. I'm not calling it X. There's been a group of authors, particularly on Threads, that are asking reviewers to not leave 1 or 2 star ratings of their books online, because they worked really hard on those things and they deserve more than just a 1 or 2 star. And then also some of the same people are asking that readers not negatively review books until the book is already out. And yeah, no, sorry, that's not how reviews work. As our internet queen, Other Rachel Reads with Rachel says, reviews are for readers. Even though there is a tiny bit of a Venn diagram, 99% of the time, reviews are left by readers for other readers to better engage whether they will like a work or not. And this is why a lot of people say that authors are not welcome in reader spaces, because these are places that readers can get a sense of community and feel safe expressing their opinions. And to ask reviewers to not do that is creating an incredibly disingenuous and dishonest work environment. To be incredibly blunt, you are not entitled to anybody's good opinion. And a fact of life is that no matter what you do or how long you work on it, there's just gonna be some people that don't like your work. Authors are way more likely to take negative comments about their books more personally than, say, a makeup company who comes out with a new blush. Let's say Sephora comes out with a new mattifying blush, and I, as someone with really dry skin, tries it because it looks pretty, and I end up not really liking it because I would like dewier things. I would like something that gives me more moisture than this like matte tacky blush. So I go and I leave a review that says, this is not good for dry skin. And the people that made that Sephora product know that I am not the target demographic, because they are obviously targeting it towards people maybe with oilier skin who like matte blush. They made a product that was made for mass consumption, and that means that it's not going to be perfect for everybody. But just because it's not right for me doesn't mean that I think that they should stop selling it, or that I now hate the company, or that I will never shop from them again. It's simply that I know that that's not for me. And I think a lot more authors need to consider it that way too. Because being an author is a job, and your book is a product. It's not going to be right for everybody. But I get why it hurts more, because your book is your baby. It's something that you spent, time, blood, sweat, tears creating. These are your characters. You've spent so much time building up this world that, of course, if somebody looks at it, at all of your work and all of your dreams and hopes and goes, it was okay, of course that's gonna hurt. But I'm gonna spit some hot fire of truth at you. Just because you created something doesn't mean that it's good. And before people get mad at me, this is also my experience as an English major. Some papers I got 90% on, and some papers I got 50% on. It's just a fact of life that everything that you put out is not always going to be S tier, God tier, top tier quality. Especially if you're a new author. Maybe you just haven't hit your stride yet. Maybe you don't fully understand the proper steps of world building to give the reader a sense of satisfaction. And people that have genuine valid complaints can have a wide range of them. Some of them can be small and nitpicky, and some of them can be actual structural issues. If your book promises romance and then there's no romance in it, people are justifiably going to be upset that the thing that they were promised was not delivered on. And this is the case especially if you want to charge money for something, because if you want to write a little passion project, free novella, and put it up online, fine. But if you want to charge me $16.99, $23.99, $42.99 of my hard-earned Canadian money dollars in this economy, I want to have something that is an equal value for what I'm paying. Even if it's a 99-cent book on Kindle Unlimited, I, as a consumer who is paying money for a product, get to decide if I think that product is worth my money and whether I want to continue to spend on it. And if we go back to the idea of an author being a job, if we take this in any other context, it's bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A-S. Like if you go and say, oh, I hired this contractor to build me a house, and at the end of his work period, the concrete was all wonky and the beams were all slanted, you wouldn't say, oh, well, we should be nice to him and give him a good review because he's doing his best. Like, no, he promised to deliver you a product, and that product is just not up to snuff. And if you want to argue that your book is really well written and that, like, the reader just didn't get it because I was being so cerebral and, like, people just don't understand my genius, well, I hate to break it to you, babes, but this is a single format. It is the written word, and if someone is not understanding your intent, that means that you didn't communicate well. But that is something that you can learn from and build on and do better for next time. The line between product and person is a lot thinner when you're an author, because a lot of people make being an author and being a writer their identity. And, like, I can't talk. But this is similar to when I modeled. For those of you that don't know, I'm a model who's read. I modeled for 10 years and still sometimes do it, but then I started getting tattoos and, like, gained weight and COVID happened and just, it was a whole thing. Because as you can probably tell, I am a redhead, and I would get booked specifically because I was a redhead, because people wanted to shoot with me. But other people would specifically not want to shoot with me because I had red hair. Like, for a while, I tried to get into extra work on, like, TV shows and stuff, and no one would hire me because I stand out too much in a crowd. And when your identity is your job and the place that you get money and validation from, it can be really difficult when you are constantly getting rejected. They're not rejecting you as a person. They're disliking a content that you created. And unfortunately, not everyone in the world is gonna like content that you make because that's life, baby. And the all or nothing mentality of liking a book is strange to me too, because there are very few books that I like with 100% of my deep, dark, black, rotted heart. Like usually I say, oh, I love this book, but I didn't love this scene, or I wish they had pushed this theme a little bit more. And there are plenty of books on my shelves that I liked parts of and didn't like others. And that is very particular to me and who I am as a person and my experiences in life and the expectations I have going into a book. And just because I gave a book 4 stars instead of 5 stars doesn't mean that I hate the book or that I'm not going to recommend it. Plus, negative reviews can be just as helpful to readers because the things that you think of negatively might be something that I think of positively. And honestly, I have bought books because of negative reviews, because someone's like, I don't like slow burn stuff, and I'm like, well, I do, so add to cart. My favorite book is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I literally have a tattoo of it. It's weird. I know plenty of people who hate it because that book is a library fever dream. It literally makes no sense, and I love that about it. But because of this enmeshment of personal worth and content creation, some authors are saying that if people leave negative reviews, that person is bullying them. And of course, if someone leaves a review like, I hate this book and I hate this author, everything's terrible, then like, yeah, maybe you could consider that hate speech. But if someone reviews your book saying the pacing is inconsistent, like, that's not bullying. This frustrates me so much because it's like, words have meaning. You can't just make up a meaning for a word. When authors go around here being like, this person didn't like my book, so they're bullying me and they're harassing me, it's like, no, they're not. I have seen groups of authors and groups of readers, mostly in the dark romance community, but that's a whole other can of worms I do not want to open today, make Excel spreadsheet documents with the handles of reviewers who are being mean to them and that are banned from their lists and that are like blocking online. And while the idea behind it is good, like I think we should have a say in policing our own community, it's mostly being used to hurt people that are disagreeing with them. And I don't know about you, but like that sounds just a little bit extreme. Just because somebody says something that you don't like doesn't mean that they're wrong. And also, you don't have to take it if you don't want to. You cannot engage with that. You can ignore it. You can just not say anything. Which leads me to my last point in this section, which is getting defensive will never make you look better. Authors, you gotta stop coming into reader spaces like Goodreads or Storygraph or Instagram comments or TikTok reviews or whatever, trying to argue that we are reviewing your book wrong or that we're not getting it. Because the people that are trying to give you genuine critique are not going to engage with you further if you yell at them. People that already didn't like your book are going to continue to not like your book because they think that you're rude, and people that were maybe considering your book are going to see you arguing with people online and decide that it's not worth it. Do not weaponize your readers, particularly if it's against one singular person, and do not encourage that behavior within your community among your fandom, because that is an abuse of power. If you post a thing publicly on an open public platform, that means that I also get to respond to that thing on an open public platform. And you are allowed to get upset, be mad, be so annoyed that this one reviewer keeps talking about how she hates your slow burn romances. Oh my god, she's such a bitch. But there are so many private places that you can be upset. Talk to a friend, talk to your writer group. Places like TikTok and Instagram and Threads, those are not places to do that. Okay, I think we flamed the authors enough, so we're going to swap them out. Okay, authors can exit stage left. They can just go have a little break from the hot seat. And we are now going to bring in the readers to flame the readers because they deserve it too. Because see, I am not an author. I am a reader and a reviewer. But that doesn't mean that I also don't have some thoughts about my own community. Maybe it's the publishing market, maybe it's the trend cycle, maybe it's just the way that social media has slowly broken down every book into a series of categories and tropes. But readers lately have been getting really picky about their reads, and it's getting really fucking obnoxious. Because where authors feel entitled for readers to read their works and like them, readers are feeling entitled that authors are not writing what they want. One of the things that's been going around for a little while that for some reason is still being discussed is that authors are asking readers and reviewers to not tag them in bad reviews. Not saying that they can't leave them, but just not tag them directly. And I'm in the camp that agrees with this. I think that you can have critique and you can dislike something without shoving it in someone's face. But now readers are turning that entitlement into a weapon, so now when readers tag authors in bad reviews and authors get upset and ask them not to, readers are turning around and going, oh, so I can't say anything or I'm being mean. If you say a book sucked and somebody else has a different opinion than you don't get to say, well, I'm a reader, so I'm above reproach. And there could be a discussion on how not all critique has to be constructive, but just because you have an opinion doesn't give you free reign to be a bitch on the internet. Entitlement and expectation are that handshake meme. Like, they are two sides of the same coin. So when a reader picks up a book and that book doesn't give them what they were expecting, then they turn around and say, oh, well, this book's bad. And it's like, maybe this book was just not meant to do the thing that you were looking for. A big one that I see is like, this book wasn't spicy enough. And I'm like, yeah, it's a YA book. Like, the main character is 15. It would be actually very weird if there was a lot of spice in it. Everybody holds value in different things and engages with media in different ways based on what you hope to get from it. But you have to realize that just because something didn't give you exactly what you wanted doesn't mean that it's bad overall. And on the flip side, just because an author wrote something that you really like doesn't mean that that thing is automatically above critique. I'm gonna say something that I said something similar to in a video that I did, a couple years ago at this point, about consumerism in the book community. Readers are sometimes so callous in their reviews that I wonder if the story itself is what you're looking for, and you're looking for a feeling and a story and something to savor and enjoy, or if you're looking for that one specific thing in the book and making like the product a commodity. Some of my author friends have told me that it's very upsetting to see someone talk about your book like, oh, well, it didn't have this or this in it, so whatever, I'm not reading it. And it's like, no matter what, like, every single book here is an amalgamation of time, patience, sweat, tears, money, effort to create something that you're holding in your hands. A book is a physical embodiment of all of someone's hard work. Like, have a little respect. Because I'm seeing on TikTok people saying, well, if this book doesn't have enemies to lovers, then I'm not reading it. And, you know, personal preferences aside, you're really never gonna read anything else besides that one very specific small thing. Like, baby, why are you limiting yourself like that? And this is when I started to understand that readers don't know how tropes work. Of course, I'm oversimplifying, but please let me judge just a little bit, okay? As a treat, for the sake of being dramatic in the video. We've all seen the TikTok videos that are like listing out different tropes or different scene types, being like, if you like this and this and this, then you're gonna love this book. Or you see the little Instagram graphics with the descriptors surrounding a book with like little arrows pointing towards it. And while they're cute and a very effective way of communicating something very quickly to a reader, with the tropifying of books, you're breaking down the story into its base elements. And in doing so, you're basically stripping away everything that makes the story worthwhile. People are equating tropes with scenes. And once again, words mean things. A trope is an umbrella term. It is a large reoccurring theme on a large scale. So these things would be enemies to lovers, forced proximity, secret identity. Whereas the scenes that people are talking about are things that could occur within the book that are maybe more likely to pop up in certain genres than others, but they are not indicative of a book genre, nor are they required. So like knife to the throat is not a trope, it's a scene. I guess technically that would count under the trope of enemies to lovers. Actually, you know what? Let's use the knife to the throat scene in this example, and like, it's a beloved scene. I love a knife to the throat scene. But people like this scene not because they love the idea of someone like being in close proximity to a sharp, pointy object, but they like the underlying reasons why those characters are in that situation. Because a knife to the throat scene is indicative of tension, power dynamics, and high stakes. Because you have two established characters who hate one another, which means that you need personal backstories for each of them and a reason for both of them to be in that situation, which usually means further world building. Then you have to have some kind of political system that establishes high stakes, high enough that the two of them are at each other's throats. But you also need to have chemistry, which means that there's some kind of reason why they need to be in forced proximity. And this is why we love a scene like that, because the knife to the throat scene is indicative of a much bigger soup. And in this way, I can understand that if a writer just writes a knife to the throat scene into their book because they want to hit some SEO goals and they're not doing the proper setup, the foundation to make that scene worth it in the rest of the story or fit in with the rest of the plot line, a reader is going to be upset because they're like, well, I came here for the knife to the throat moment, but none of the extra stuff came with it, and so maybe then they'll leave a negative review. That leads me to, what do authors and readers actually owe one another? And I mean, technically, nothing. Like, we don't know each other's shit. But from a reader perspective, I think the only thing that an author really owes to a reader is a good story. But in that way, that is completely up to the author to decide what kind of story they want to tell and how they want to tell it. Because even though we want to put the OS on the author of making a story as inclusive and beautiful and diverse as we want, really, that's not up to the reader. An author can write a story that's 3 pages long. They can decide to just stop writing in the middle of chapter 4, and that they can do that. They can legally do that, even if we don't like it. They can make a book as white or as straight or as problematic as they want, and that is up to them. And as a reader, it's up to us to decide how we want to engage with that media. Because something I've been seeing a lot of other readers get frustrated with is seeing people post about how I only ever see the same 5 books online and I'm so tired of them. And it's like, babes, have you ever thought to do a Google search? Or when people complain that they can't find diverse books, and it's like, have you been outside in the last 10 years? And we do need to be kinder to people when we talk about access, because a lot of people do not have the access to the same things that we do. However, we're all here on God's green internet, and even though algorithms run our lives, if you really are looking for something, there is 110% chance that somebody out there has written it. And on the other side of that, if you're an author who only writes white straight characters, you don't get to be upset when people start calling you out for that, because you are. And of course, nobody wants to be called or think of themselves as racist or sexist or homophobic or transphobic or whatever. Like, everybody wants to think that they are chill and cool and not alienating anybody. But if you say, oh, I'm only gonna write white characters, Like, you have to know that some people are going to be upset with you, and you have to figure out how you feel about that. Like, you don't get to have it both ways. Like, you don't get diversity points for not trying. But then that's also backfiring because people think that they need to do everything, and then readers are expecting authors to do everything. Because if you want more diverse books, maybe diversify who you follow. Because it's so annoying when people are constantly mad at a single author. Let's use Sarah J. Maas as an example, because she writes primarily white straight books. I mean, she has some ambiguous, maybe possibly characters of color who might just be really tan white people, and then the one queer character canonically has a lot of sex because she was assaulted, and you're like, not the best takes there. But people constantly getting upset at Sarah J. Maas for not putting diversity in her books, while then continuing to buy Sarah J. Maas books. Like, I think there's a more obvious solution to this, actually. And another place where reader and writer entitlement come together in a Venn diagram is in PR boxes. This is the other drama that influenced me for this video, in that an indie author, sent out PR boxes to a bunch of bloggers, including a blogger that she was mutuals with online. And this blogger got the box and then posted a very mocking review of it publicly, and though she didn't tag the author in the review, she posted it in a platform that she was mutuals with that she could deduct that maybe that author would see it. The author then DM'd the reviewer being upset, and the reviewer said, like, oh, I can't say anything negative, like, you're just upset that I don't like it. And now in this situation, there's a little gray area. Like, do I think that this reviewer should have publicly posted a negative review on a platform where she knew that there was a very high chance of that author seeing it? Maybe not. But also, do I think that that author should have messaged that person? Also, no, like, she probably just shouldn't have engaged with it, but it happened. Something you have to know about the book community is that we have a big trade for product culture, which means that I can request a book and I will receive it under the impression that I will publicly post about it. So it's kind of like, instead of paying me to post, they'll send me the book for free, and then the book is my payment. And by sending an influencer a package, the publisher is hoping that in return, they will advertise it, and then other people will see it, and they will buy it, and then they get their money back from the money that they spent shipping the book to them. Like, you understand how business works. But this is a little different when it comes to indie authors, because, you know, these packages, especially if you're doing bombastic PR packages that have candles and t-shirts and the hardcover book and artwork and stencils and like all this stuff, those are expensive to create and curate and to ship. And if you work at a big publisher, that's part of your marketing budget. But if you're an indie author, that usually means that you are the person to bear the upfront cost, which means that if you source and ship out 40 PR boxes and they're all $100 each, you're hoping that you will get some kind of return on investment, so you could be more justifiably upset if someone that you sent the box to didn't post about it, because then you're actively losing money. However, a lot of this type of payment is based on handshake deals. There's very rarely any kind of legally binding contract. It's just a, hey, would you like me to send this to you if you review it? And people say, yes, I will. And you kind of have to go off of that. You have to trust somebody that they will do as they say. So while they may not be under a legal obligation, I do think it's kind of rude of the reviewer to not post about something that they promised the author they would. There is something to be said if you send a PR box to somebody who did not request it, because I'm in the camp that if I get sent something that I did not ask for, that I don't have to review it because I didn't agree to that. And in that case, it's like you took a chance and that chance didn't pay off. So you don't get to whine about how you sent out so many packages and no one reviewed them, because it's like, girl, did I ask for this? But authors are also allowed to get upset if they spend all this money and time and energy for someone to just blow them off. Because even though no money is being exchanged or there's no contract, I have entered into a deal, like that is my job, and if I'm not doing my job, then I can understand how that author or publisher community can lose trust in me. So book bloggers don't get to complain that they're no longer getting sent stuff, because you having an opinion on the internet doesn't mean that you're automatically entitled to having things for free, because like the stipulation of you getting that product is that you do work. And this can also be tricky when it comes to the amount of parasocial relationships, because the bookish community is based on sharing a love for stories and sharing a love of something that somebody else wrote. But because people often take on a multitude of roles within the community, you can be a reader and a reviewer and an author and an editor all at once, there's a lot of commingling in that space. But because everybody is trying to be so friendly and inclusive and, you know, share a love of something, there tends to be a really big, like, hey bestie kind of mentality in the community, which I'm not saying is bad, but I'm saying it sometimes gets complicated. Many readers feel a special connection with an author who wrote something that really spoke to them. And so then they will get defensive of that author if anyone says anything bad about them. Or readers turned authors will use their previous reader friends to review their book, and that might give them a bias, or that might make them upset when one of their friends says that they don't like their writing. Which leads back to the beginning of this video, 15, 20, 45 minutes ago, whatever the bar below says, about authors getting argumentative in reader spaces because maybe you share friends in that space, or your friend is showing you something from a group that they're in. And maybe there's more to say here on stan culture and like how we look at community in different ways. But once again, just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean that you are wrong. And just because you've created a thing, that doesn't mean that you have to put all your self-worth into that one creation. I've said it before and I'll say it again, you should critique things that you like. And maybe it's the internet or the loneliness epidemic or capitalism, but everybody is so deep inside their own heads that they're not taking a moment to look outside themselves. Authors think that just because they create something that they don't deserve any negative feedback. Readers are seeing the power dynamics swing in their favor and they're then abusing that. And hey, we're all human. Nobody's perfect. We're going to mess up. We're going to make snap judgments and get upset and just do things without thinking, but you're also not guaranteed anything in this life. And I think it's kind of sad that we're being so individualistic over like, I deserve this, I want this, I'm looking for this thing, and if it's not perfect, then it's bad. That I think we're losing the plot. Haha, book jokes. We're all forgetting that we're here to connect with other people, and we're here because of our love of stories. And just like if you enter into a romantic relationship or a new friendship, assumedly you like that person because you have common ground, and why wouldn't you want to be nice to them and uplift them and help them with the problems that they're having? Like, why are we all being so mean? And yes, I know it's very starry-eyed of me to be like, oh my god, people are being mean on the internet, but it's like, if you want to enjoy the space, there is a way to be respectful and to not badmouth people online and to actively work towards making it the inclusive, lovely space that you want. So my biggest advice is that if you're getting upset about something, do not engage, or take a moment to engage respectfully. Remember that critique of your work is not critique on you as a person. Consider why you are so upset about something that doesn't reach your expectations, and remember that you can go out and find things that do. And last, but certainly not least, don't be a dick, because that is the fastest way for me to disengage with you and all of your content, is to be out here wildin' on God's green internet. And I think that's it on that. I'm sure that I have missed out on stuff. I'm sure there's so much more nuance that I missed. So please, if you would like, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to continue the conversation. Just like any other community, readers and authors and reviewers can get stuck in our little bubbles based on our preferences and our social circles and our algorithms. And sometimes we need a reminder that there's other stuff outside of that. And nobody wants to be told that they're doing a poor job at something, or that something that they like is actually bad. But sometimes we need to like internally reflect on stuff to become better and greater people. As I wrap up this script and I finish my coffee, I can just feel the English major like ascending out of my body. Like, I think I just blacked out for a couple of hours there. Do I even have a video? I don't know. I guess we'll find out when I check my camera. I have done a little bit of an oops, and that is that I did in fact have coffee for dinner, and I probably should go eat something solid. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!